One thing I like about talking about people who've had a lot of experience with women is you hear really good stuff, man. You hear awesome stuff. You talk to a guy who's really good with women, who's had a lot of sex, had a lot of relationships, and I'm not talking about like some newbie dude, but a guy who's gotten divorced or had kids with somebody or like made the real big life decisions and then come to like really have a command over their dating and sex life. You hear certain things and you don't hear other things. And it's so important to talk with groups of guys like that because, man, it helps you evolve and you realize you're not alone. But the interesting thing is most of the dialogue about sex and relationships that's being sold outside, like, that you see in the pickup industry, the dating industry, or even in self-help, or people giving relationship advice and the self-help stuff is so based on concept and so wrong, so fundamentally off that it's really a sad artifact that you do not see a really seasoned person that's good with women. I think a good caliber for this is look for a guy that's a little bit older and maybe he's even past his prime and, maybe in his 50s or 60s and he's gone through a divorce, gone through two, had kids. That's what you want to look for. Stop looking to these young guys. And myself, I'm included in that. But I started to think about this because I was talking with a friend of mine and he said this to me and he's trying to date multiple women. Okay, he's dating multiple women once, and I have a lot of experience with that. And that's kind of one of those cool things. And everybody likes to talk about it. It's a dream of every man, and you should do it, man. Everything that you want sexually, you should go for, and that's such an important thing. You have to go for it. And you have to allow your body to speak. In every area of your life, not even just with sex and dating, but all those things, they have to be fulfilled and exercised, or else they're just gonna kind of like you're always gonna be wanting more. All right, and be smart enough to stop. What do they say? Like, do what makes you feel good, but stop before it kills you. So that's some good advice, right? Now, the crazy thing is this guy's sitting here talking and I was like, man, so who are you dating? He's like, oh, I'm dating this girl. I'm dating that girl. And these things are happening. And he's like, have you ever heard of whatever? He said this guy's name, like Vince Love. I don't know what the fuck his name was, but I was like, I have no idea. He's like, oh, he's a polyamory coach. And I'm like, well, I'll just tell you this. I don't know him. But most coaches about that sort of thing are fucking idiots because it's an industry that I work in. But whatever. I guess you want to tell me about him, right? So I come in with kind of a jaded angle. He goes, well, I'm dating these three girls. And one thing that I'm so proud of myself about is that I'm honest with them all. And they get really mad and upset, but I'm able to tell them and create the rules and the boundaries of what we need for an ecosystem. And monogamy is such a flaw because it's not the natural way of man and humanity and not how we have sex and relationships. And really how we have sex and relationships is through this hierarchy of whatever. And I was just like, well, okay, what the fuck are you talking about, man? And he broke it down, of all like what it was to be a modern man with, that sexual and in I guess command of his life in some fucking way. And of course there was some regimented thing. And the interesting thing about this is it's like one man-made concept is flawed because it's man-made doesn't occur in nature. But this other man-made concept is not flawed because it tries to model nature, but with all the benefits of society and power that we think is important, that's going to only benefit me and kind of benefit the other people that I'm with. But if they're outside of it, it's based on a theory and in science. So, whatever, it might have hurt them, but it's only better for them. Like, what a fucking shitty way to think. And I had to cut this guy off. And I said, man, look, I'm all for you. Like, you should fuck as many chicks as you want. That's awesome. Like, fucking chicks and being around women in that way is badass. And knowing what that experience is like, that's fucking awesome. But any guy I know that is good with women does not do a couple things. Number one, he doesn't need to consult some sort of moral social order of how he's supposed to have power as a man to fuck chicks. He likes fucking chicks. Any guy that I know that lives this life like does that. It is not about a cause that he needs to justify what he's doing. He might sit there and say like, man, that's the way of man. Men fuck women and blah, 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 blah. And he may say that shit. But it doesn't have to have this like intellectual stimuli that's argued for of right and wrong. I mean, it was just so weird. And I said, and here's the other thing, dude. this is something that you need to think about. And I don't know who your polyamory coach is or whatever it is, or your love coach, or your dating coach, or all this sort of stuff. Any fucking guy that has lived with multiple women, that has sex with multiple women and does that as a life, it's not something that's done this once or twice and it's kind of a cool thing. And he's going to tell you the science about it. It's somebody who's done this as a life. They don't fucking have to tell the truth to everybody because they don't have so much guilt that they're doing something wrong. And this is what I want to make the equation with. If you're a boss, you don't tell your employees about everything with the business. And if you're an employee, you don't tell everything about the boss. There's a natural separation that comes into play. When you're in a relationship with multiple people, if you're going to be honest and say everything, then you all got to be living under the same roof. Or else it's going to cause chaos. It's going to hurt people. It's going to affect people. And it's just not something that can be sustained. And it's something that will just incite so much shit that will cause problems for you. And it's really the dumbest fucking thing you can do. It's the most guilt-ridden, fucking millennial, upper middle class shitbag, like lack of life experience. I read it in a book, way to handle things. You don't do that. And you're not withholding information to be an asshole. You're withholding information because you know what? It's nobody's fucking business. I don't talk to every stranger on the street and tell them my entire life story. And actually, I'm a pretty open guy. I do kind of tell people my whole story, but I know the boundaries of what's right and wrong and how I can communicate with people. And if you want to talk about free love and how sex is a natural thing, then sex doesn't need to be such a big fucking deal that you have to put all these rules around it to make it happen. Part of the reason why it's abnormal to have relationships with multiple people is because we see sex as abnormal in the first place. And making it an abnormal or a structured thing or something that's anyway outside of the nature of just feeling and doing something and being able to live with that, Jesus Christ, man, you're just adding fuel to the fire. It's one of those things that we talk a lot about at TSL and the different things that we do in our coaching is that, you know what, if you have a problem, whatever it is, like you can't talk to women, you can't approach women, okay, you have anxiety about that, it totally fucks you up. That's a problem. You need to address it. And you need to address it in a specific way and take action on it. But if you think it's a problem that it makes you different, it will cause more anxiety. And then the solution can only be anxiety ridden. And that's what we start seeing with people with relationships. It's like, oh, well, monogamy didn't work out for me. It scientifically doesn't make sense. So I'm going to now come up with this intellectualized, structurized thing that has to do with love and compartmentalize it so I can be natural. You are adding the problem to the assumed solution. Now, look, I'll tell you this, monogamy is totally like not a natural thing, but in our society and in our culture, it tends to happen all the time. Now, does it sustain? No, man, it's really hard. Cheating always wins, or infidelity always wins, or whatever you want to call it. However, the interesting thing about this all is that when we start doing stuff that is structuring relationships and we start siding it with things like power or status, or the way a culture looks at us, or something like that, that can only be fueled by an insecurity. If you want to just go into the natural ways that men and women had sex, and you want to study like whatever indigenous cultures that still exist where you can find this, man, they have it in all sorts of different ways. But one thing is that every single human species, every single human culture will have sex as a form of communication that goes beyond reproduction. They will have sex in a way that it influences your culture, your identity, and who you are. That could go into all sorts of different stuff. That could go into homosexuality. That could go into hardcore monogamy. That could go into, where everybody's having sex. Where juveniles are having sex with people and all this sorts of stuff. And it just goes into so many different ways. But human beings will have sex for pleasure. And if you want to go into like how we have sex, man, we are biologically turned on by what is in front of us. And man, that's that. You set a structure around that, you immediately start polluting it. And I'll just get back to this because the point of it is like, man, don't overthink it. You want to know the best knowledge for guys that have the sort of thing where they're dating a lot of women or they're having sex with a lot of women. Man, talk to some guys that have a lot of experience with it because it's very, very clear. Man, you fuck a lot of chicks. Why would you tell them about the other women? Why would you start integrating all this stuff to where you have to be thorough and honest with them and tell them everything? Why would you? Why does that have to be done? That only has to be done because you feel guilty, and there's something about them and you that makes it feel unnatural and that you're not supposed to be doing it, so you're trying to calm it. But Jesus Christ, I'll tell you this. Anytime I'm fucking a bunch of chicks and one chick finds out and she gets mad, I just say, yeah, that's what we're doing. It's none of your business. But like, I mean, what, do you want to talk about it? Then let's all three of us talk about it. And let's all three of us integrate this thing. But you don't. So let's stop. Okay, you like me or not? And then the conversation goes into all these rules that they put out and how they feel and da-da-da-da and all that sort of shit. And basically you just say like, all right, so do we stop this or do we continue? What the fuck do you want? And then they usually say, well, I don't know. I'm just okay. Don't talk about it. Let's make out. Let's hook up. Let's have our life. Let's go do stuff together. Let's go date. Let's enjoy it and have us be us. And then a week later, it'll come up again. I mean, how are you going to control that? I mean, how are you going to control it? You can control it through force, but it ain't going to last that long. You can control it through some sort of dialogue or some sort of moral justification. It's going to creep back up again. But, man, it's tough to manage. That's why it's a fucking pain in the ass. It's a fucking crazy thing. And I'll say this, man. If you want to be a man that dates a lot of women or has a lot of women in your life, you're going to be spending a lot of your man time doing that and not a lot of your man time doing other stuff because, God, dude, trouble is two women standing under the same roof. Really, it should be trouble is two women on the same dick because that is some fucking crazy shit.